Hi guys, Josh here, and I played Garden Witch Life so you don't have to. This new farming sim released for PC and consoles on September 12th, and in this video I'll show you what my first 5 hours with it were like, and who knows, it might be a great game for you, but it really didn't do it for me, and you'll see why. Let's get started. First, I created my character. I tried making a male looking one, but that didn't work too well. Even with short hair and no eyelashes, there was no way to change the shape of the face or body. But it's Garden Witch Life, not Garden Wizard Life, so fine. Here is Josephine, and I think she looks pretty cute. The blank interior of that airship, however, not as cute. Josephine arrived on Moonflower Island after getting laid off from her job and encountered May, this cactus lady who tried to cheer her up with free cupcakes and a drink. So far, there is potential in the story, it is a bit emotional, there is room for character development. We need more farming sims with good narratives. Not unlike most farming sims, however, the first stranger to show up is being given a house completely for free, so this off-the-grid magical treehouse was now mine. May left, and in the mailbox was a letter from her right away with a bunch of seeds and cooking recipes that she had prepared for me. I don't know why she didn't give me those things in person, but I got to farming. When May said that this farm was off the grid, she was not kidding, as there is absolutely no grid in this game. I planted a few seeds. When you plant them, they all have a smaller and then a bigger circle. Some of them would get red when close to each other, but not all of them. And there was no clear indication of whether or not I had to keep a certain distance between the seeds. I then used my watering can, which made the soil wet, but it just didn't feel right. I was hoping for the seedlings to have some sort of animation, maybe an icon or something to tell me that they were watered, maybe a sound effect. Even though I knew they were watered because the soil was wet, there was no feedback or anything satisfying about the process. I'm not entirely against having no grid. For example, Sakuna Rise and Ruin doesn't have one, and it's an amazing game, but the farming in that one is still engaging. I cleaned up a bit around my fields, and then I decided to get cooking. Using some of the potatoes that were sent to me by mail with everything else, I used my cutting board and made diced potatoes. Very cute mechanic here where you have to cut the potatoes. It reminded me of Kinseed, and I thought that was interesting. I then used my magic cauldron to make a potato soup. When you're cooking, on top here you have the ingredients, on the left the instructions for the recipes, and on the bottom you have the heat of the cauldron. So I added the diced potatoes, salt, clicked on a flame icon to bring the heat up, used the wooden spoon to stir, added some parsley, stirred again, and there was my soup. Very fun and immersive cooking mechanic, until you find out that even if you put the wrong ingredient or do things completely out of order, you can't really mess it up. The game checks if you're doing the right thing, and when you do, it will check it off the list of instructions, but if you do anything wrong in between these steps, it simply ignores it. This could have been such a great cooking mechanic, but without any quality level for the dishes or consequences for messing up, it feels pointless. I then went back outside, got into this extremely dramatic accident by trying to walk over these tiny plants, and then I decided to go check out the town. I met with Tin, the blacksmith, who gave me an axe, a pickaxe, and a shovel, under the condition that I had to pay her back 200 coins whenever I had the chance. I went for a little swim around the plaza, found a cave with crystals and sunflower seeds, and then I noticed I had a quest asking me to make a nettle soup. For that, I simply had to find 5 nettles. So I returned home to look for that, and a little complaint about the whole farm area is that your house is right in the middle. You have 2 doors opposite of each other, so one at the front, one at the back. Your field is this huge circle, and it's just quite hard to orient yourself. If you played A New Leaf Memories, it has a very similar feeling. To add to the confusion, even though the 2 doors are on opposite sides of the house from the outside, when inside, the second door is actually located on the right side of the house. I don't expect games to have perfectly matching interiors and exteriors, but the door is in an entirely different spot here, and it makes going around your house and farm very confusing. I eventually found a path to the forest, still looking for nettle. I got lost, so I decided to check out the map. Very lovely sketch, but not at all useful. You can't see where you are precisely. The character icons are confusing. You can see names for the different shops, but that's pretty much it. Around 10 p.m., I still had not found any nettle, so I went to bed and wrapped up my very first day. When I woke up, the soil on my farm was looking dry. Something was wrong. I asked May about it, who suggested I fertilize the soil. To buy fertilizer, I went to the general store, which can be identified by this sign here, which has no name or logo. So many times when playing Garden Witch Life, I just wondered why. Why did the developers take the time to put a hanging sign on a shop, but without adding anything that would actually identify the shop, which is like the sole purpose of a sign? Anyway, I met Aurel, the store owner, and I bought 20 bags of fertilizer from him at 1 coin per bag. On my way home, I clicked on some of the fertilizer in my toolbar by accident, wasting some of it. If you click on seeds by accident while you're outside of your farm, nothing happens, but fertilizer does disappear, so you gotta be careful on what you click. I planted my remaining fertilizer around my crops, and once again, no grid, and fertilizer can be applied multiple times in the same spot. It creates some green little things on the ground, but no explanation or any indicator as if it's working. If there should be a distance between each application, do you benefit by applying a lot in the same spot? You just have to guess everything. Aurel, the guy from the general store, sent me a letter telling me he had a good idea to connect with the other villagers and that I should meet up with him. That was the second letter I received right after speaking with someone. Why did he not tell me when I was speaking with him? How did the letter get to my mailbox so fast? I know that these could be seen as insignificant details and I might sound harsh, but these insignificant details are everywhere in this game, and I felt like every single thing I did or saw broke the immersion. I told Aurel I received his letter, and I was given flowers to deliver to each of the other residents. But unlike most games where you're asked to greet everyone at the beginning, here I had to do it in a very specific order, even though there was no narrative reason for it. So there was a ton of back and forth finding everyone. Once again, the map did not help much. And another confusing thing was how the options when talking to characters were always in a different order. For example, one would have the option to deliver the flower first, and the one for gifting second. With another character, the gifting would be first, the delivery second. The text was also slightly different each time, so for this character here, the first option was labeled a special gift for you, the second one was for shopping, and the third one was I have a gift for you. So between a special gift for you and I have a gift for you, and knowing that there is no consistency with the order, there's a lot of guessing involved. It does not prevent you from playing or enjoying the game, but it does make it feel disorganized and messy. Just like this door here, as you can see from the outside, it's big, rounded with some glass around the frame, but then inside the building, the same door now has a completely different shape. There is no more glass, the color is different. It's not the same door at all, and I don't think there's any way to justify it. After delivering the flowers, I went home, slept, and the next day, I finally found nettle, which was growing right outside my house. The recipe asked for water, which I could get an infinite amount of from the well, and that free water also makes for great gifts. I made the soup, I tried messing up the recipe, but once again, what you do while cooking doesn't matter, and then I went to deliver it. Before that, I had a look at my quest log. I had 2 quests. One was to deliver the soup, one was to repay tin for the tools. At the beginning of the game, I was able to pin 2 quests so they would show on my HUD, but now for some reason I was only able to pin one of them at a time. I met up with May to give her the soup, and now the dialogue option to give her the soup, even though it was similar to the regular gifting option, it had a little icon for the soup. Why was there no icon when I was delivering the flowers? I have no idea, and the inconsistencies were killing me. May then told me that I could make some money by either putting things in the Magibuy sales box, where I would be getting paid the next day, but not make too much of a profit. The other option was the community box, where things would take longer to sell, a few days, but for a better price. I tried selling a few things at the Magibuy sales box. Most items were selling for only 1 coin, not very satisfying, especially since there's no way to see the price beforehand. But I also got very confused by the amount of money showed on the screen when selling, as there's no text or anything really explaining. I initially thought it would be the amount I would get the next day by selling, but it turned out that was actually my current amount of money. Even though May explicitly said I would be getting paid the next day, it was actually instant, so I was getting the money right away. And I don't mind it being instant, but there's just no consistency between what NPCs tell you and how things actually work. There are some tutorials, but they don't really help, and we will have a look at those later. I tried selling some of my water since I could get an infinite quantity of it. That didn't work, but I was able to make some ice cubes using that same free water, which Yes, it was a bit time consuming, but for 1 coin per ice cube, it was pretty much as profitable as selling most of the items found while foraging, or even dishes that would require ingredients a lot more rare than water. The economy is one of the most unbalanced I've ever seen. Most items sell for practically nothing, while things in shops cost hundreds of coins. I found that a fine way of making money was by selling the crystal wheat ears found on the farm, or just making an infinite amount of ice cubes, but none of these are very fun, and that makes it so the gameplay loop is not satisfying. I don't mind a challenge, I don't mind grinding or a game where it takes time to make money, but everything just feels pointless here. I got back home and I met with this ghost who taught me how to make a compost bin. To craft the compost bin, however, I needed a raised bed, which I did not have the recipe for yet, and absolutely no idea where I could learn it. I spent the following days gathering stone and wood so I could make a raised bed whenever I would find the recipe. I also made some money. I paid Tin back the 200 coins for the tools. I thought that that would maybe trigger a new quest, but absolutely nothing happened. I explored the forest a bit more. I found recipes for some pieces of furniture like a wardrobe and a shelf. And on my way back, around 1 p.m., I collapsed. So in this game, there are quite a few stats to keep track of. So there's health, which can decrease if you hit these tiny plants. Magic, which I've not seen in my first 5 hours of the game. Stamina, which decreases by using your tools. Hunger, which depletes over time if you don't eat. And then being hungry affects the other stats. And lastly, fatigue, which goes up over time and by using your tools. And then when it gets full, you pass out. I feel like stamina, hunger, and fatigue could have been combined into one. I can't see what health really adds to the game. You could remove it and it wouldn't make much difference. And I use this word a lot, but it's just messy. The game does have tutorials in the menu. You're not really being taught anything naturally, and as you saw earlier, sometimes NPCs give you false information, but the tutorials are not much better. For example, here's an extract of the hunger tutorial. Eating well is so important. I heard that in the past, people would not survive without eating. I'm glad these dark times are over nowadays because of the power of the Magi. But not eating is still never a good idea. Also, while living in the big city, I never had such good food as I have here. In the city, it was more about nutrition, efficiency, and boosting your working power. It goes on, and it eventually gets into some of the mechanics, but it's like when you're looking up for a recipe online, you don't want to read the entire person's life story, you just want clear instructions on how to make the recipe. And I get that they're trying to tie in some of the lore and the personality of Josephine, but a tutorial is probably the worst place to do that. It should be clear and to the point. Speaking of lore and personality, I had the impression at first that the game would be a well-written narrative with interesting characters. It had a great start, but most characters had absolutely nothing to tell me, no quests to give me, and I have no doubt that at some point the story will progress, but it did nothing to make me want to keep going. My only sliver of motivation was making this video, and the only goal I had in the game was finding how to make a raised bed so I could make a compost bin. Right when I was about to give up, I chatted with this NPC called Lily, and it turns out she was selling some crafting recipes and, oh my gosh, recipes for raised beds. So there was a raised bed, the exact one that I needed for the compost bin, so I made sure to get that. And then raised bed 1, raised bed 2, and raised bed 3, and I challenge you to spot the differences between the 3 of them. I could not buy those yet, but don't worry, we'll find out by the end of the video what the difference is. So after that, I went back home and crafted my raised bed and then my compost bin. I opened my compost bin, and by the way, small thing, but you can click on most titles in the menus of this game. So like if I click on inventory or compost bin here, they change color as if they were buttons, but they're not buttons, they don't do anything. So why were they programmed to behave like that? I have no idea. Anything can be put into the compost bin. The game doesn't really tell you what will make compost or not, but the next day you get compost from whatever could be transformed. You might be wondering, what is the difference between this compost I just made and fertilizer from the store? Who knows really, but while the fertilizer was making some green things on my crops, the compost is making the soil dark brown. Now, the only goal I had left, not a quest given to me by the game, but I wanted to find out what was the difference between raised bed 1, 2, and 3, so I saved up some money. They were pretty pricey at 150 coins each, and I managed to buy the recipes for 2 of them. Each one required 30 planks, so 60 in total, and I had 57. There was no wood left anywhere on my farm, nowhere to buy wood, and so logically I went to the forest, but there was no wood there. So I kept searching and searching for multiple days, and on some days it was raining. And one interesting thing about the rain in this game is that every time you enter a new area, it starts as sunny, and then very quickly the clouds appear, it gets dark, and starts raining again. Instead of, like in any other game, just having it rain seamlessly all day long. It is a bit jarring to see the weather and the lighting adjust like that over and over again as you play, and even inside your house, you can see those transitions like if you go from one room to the next, and for me it just really takes me out of the game. So I kept searching for wood day after day, I could not find anything, but I decided to at least make raised bed 1 to start with. So that's how it looks, you can plant crops in it. Watering it feels a bit weird, it works the same way as the soil, but you have to jump on top of it if you want to get everything. But that's raised bed 1. I then went searching for wood again, could not find anything. Went for a swim to change my mind. One time I got stuck in a mountain. Another time the camera completely glitched. And then one day I finally saw some trees growing on my farm. I wasn't sure if I had to water them or not, so I watered them and slept for a few days, but there was no way to tell if they would grow bigger or not. They were not getting bigger, so I just tried cutting them. And at first I thought I couldn't, as my character kept missing the tree. But it's just that they have a very narrow hitbox and your cursor has to be right in the center for it to work. It does highlight the tree a little bit when you're aiming at it, but like everything else, it's really not clear, fun, or intuitive. So I now had wood to make planks, and I could finally find out what the difference was between raised bed 1 and raised bed 2. I'm probably going to have to zoom in for you to see this, but raised bed 2 has slightly bigger planks forming the top of the bed and the corners. They go out slightly on each side, but it's honestly not something that someone would notice while playing normally. Not something that you can even see when you buy the recipes in the store, because the names are very vague, there's no description, the picture is very small. And in the end, I think that there's just no reason to have two different items that are so similar. They could have done maybe a different color, a different shape, or why not just one raised bed? That was the last straw for me. I had enough. I gave the game a fair chance. 3 hours with the demo last year, 5 hours with the full release now. And maybe your experience will be different, but it really didn't do it for me. All of the inconsistencies, the mechanics that are poorly explained, the completely unbalanced economy, the gameplay loop that is simply not enjoyable. I tried my best, but I couldn't find a reason to justify playing Garden Witch Life. It started with a seemingly interesting story, and who knows, maybe it does get interesting again after 10 hours, 15 hours. But there's nothing that would make me want to keep playing that much. I know there are a small team of developers behind this game. On one hand, I don't want to be too harsh, I'm sure they probably did their best. But this game is not in early access, I want to make that clear. It is a full release, it's $20 US or 26 Canadian dollars. There is a certain level of quality expected at that price point, and especially in recent years when you can get lots of high quality, polished games, even from solo developers, for the same price or cheaper, I can't recommend it. If it was $5 or $10, maybe, but even then, I did not really have fun. Now, it could get better. I know they are working on the feedback and trying to fix some of these things. That being said, I played a demo of this game in June 2023, over a year ago. I had the same issues I'm having today with the game. People told me I was too harsh back then because it was still a demo. I was not feeling very confident it would get better, and here we are. I know some people will tell me I'm too harsh again. I'm sure the game could get a bit better with time, but based on my experience, how messy the game was a year ago and how that has not changed much, I highly doubt there will be much of a transformation, but I would love to be proven wrong. I think that the developers were probably a bit too ambitious with this one. It had potential for a fun story, interesting mechanics, and the game does look cute, but in the end, nothing feels right. So I'd love to know what you think. Have you played Garden Witch Life? Was it a game you were looking forward to? The reviews are mixed on Steam. There are lots of negative ones that felt similar to my experience, but also lots of positive ones, so maybe it just depends on what you're looking for in a game. For me, I had a similar time with other games like The Witch of Fern Island and A New Leaf Memories. These three games feel similar in a lot of ways. Some people love them, which is absolutely amazing, but they're personally very hard for me to recommend over other farming games. So let me know your thoughts, leave a like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you all in the next video.